All right, hello. Today is July 8th, 2026. Took one trade. It was a loss. We'll go over that and we'll go over the market review today as well. So, first off, coming into the market, I'll bring up my pre-market analysis. Um, right, so what do we have coming into today? All assets expanded overnight throughout London session, sweeping out high time from sell side, and then begin to retrace back into this high time frame IRL. But notice the candle size here retracing compared to the expansion away. So depending on 9:30 opens, initial draw on liquidity is pre-market highs. However, I can see high time frame continuation play out back to low of day and PO3s develop accordingly. So what I mean is that I can see some type of New York continuation as we sweep high of day, or not high of day, but this high of session or pre-market high, and move back down to sell side as a continuation of our high time frame bearish trend. Okay, so that's what initially happened. So when we play this out, market open, initially, let me delete some of this stuff, is that NQ manipulates higher, sweeping this pre-market high. So that's ideal, right? That's ideal for the shorts. However, ES and YM manipulate lower. So as of now, there's one asset in a spot of bearish distribution and two assets in a spot of bullish distribution. So if I want shorts, there's no way I can validate this for me personally because I want two assets at least in a spot of bearish distribution. So what am I doing? I set an alert right here and on here for YM, and I'm waiting for one of these levels to get mitigated. All right, so that is what happens. We wait, nothing happens. I know some people took this short right here. I think so. This is like a internal, like a low time frame stop on. We have this. I don't think it closed, but almost a CISD here. Reason I wouldn't have taken this is because the ES is like accumulating after manipulating lower, as well as YM. Sorry. So I'm waiting for ES or YM to manipulate this high for a higher probability bearish distribution. Okay. So I'm just waiting as well. Boom. Well, this is very textbook. Very textbook. We're accumulating, manipulate higher a key level, manipulate higher of this, this internal buy side here, and then we have this SMT form with IM, right? However, one thing I didn't like was this high time frame draw, this like London high that we had left here. Even though it did have S&P attached to it right here, it was something that I was aware of, and I'm like, okay, maybe the NQ will reach this high before we actually distribute lower, just because how high in the range it is. And then also something I like to see to prove we're bearish is how low the range that YM and ES are. Like they have no reason, or it'll be difficult for them to push this much, through that high time frame imbalance as well as YM. So that led to me holding a bearish bias. Okay. So then what happens is we have a low time frame stop hunt aligned with the 945 power of 3. Right, we resweep this high right here on ES and NQ, forming an SMT with YM, and then we have a clean 1 minute CISD. Right, so this is a very valid entry. So for me personally, I didn't take this. I was very, very tempted to, but the only reason I didn't take this is because how close NQ was to this high right here. So if anything, my scenario was I would rather wait for this smart money reversal to be confirmed before I, take. I'd rather take a continuation trade than take a reversal away from this high time frame draw on liquidity. Okay, so ideally, this would be the SMR. We come down, form a 5 minute imbalance, come up, low time frame stop hunt, and then continue lower. Right. That was my ideal scenario. I was okay with not catching the SMR, but this is a very valid trade, anyways. This is very valid. I think low time frame, no swing divergence at the highs, but very valid. Yeah, I didn't take that, but I wanted the continuation after that. So what happened? is that we literally just chopped, just continued to chop 10 a.m. open, and like really did nothing. If anything, added like a failure swing at the highs. So now I'm noting that we're generating failure swings at the lows, right? And at the highs as well. So it's like that's not a scenario where I want to participate in a trade. So I'm just waiting. Now that this is consolidation after a key level is hit. So I'd because of this, I'd want to see this swept or like this range low or this range low swept here. Just because we're consolidating though. So I just wait. Okay, now we have potential. We're sweeping this range low. We have failure swings at the highs and a high time frame draw on liquidity above. And then nothing happens. Or sorry, something does happen. Again, we sweep this internal low, tap into a 15-minute fair value gap. However, the reason I had faded this now, and this is where I really started to get skeptical, okay, is because we did have this 1 minute CISD. We had the manipulation lower on multiple assets, right? Why I'm sweeping this low. Uh, ES forms equal lows, so that was like a first red flag for me. As well as it's like if this is all valid if we're bullish, right? If we're continuing to trend higher, which it seemed like we were throughout all pre-market. However, it's like the chances that we are bearish, right? We've been trending bearish. The chances that this is an ERL, like an ERL to IRL move. It's hard to see on NQ because NQ pushed really high into the range, but ERL to IRL move is that what would need to happen for price to continue lower? We want the internal manipulation to continue lower, and that's exactly what we got, right? We got that at pre or market open as ES swept this internal high. We formed SMT at these highs with YM, right? So it's like at this point, only thing validating those longs is if we're bullish, but also at the same time, we have a bearish, like high time frame bearish structure of an ERL to IRL. Now we're IRL manipulating. We have the manipulation that validates the move back down to low of day or ERL. So it's like now shorts are very, very valid, and a bearish bias could be back into play because any long bias here is just playing the manipulation leg for the bearish distribution. Okay, so now that the manipulation leg could be over, I was much more skeptical about taking any longs whatsoever. Okay, and that's why I didn't take this because I honestly thought we could take this internal high and then move lower. However, we had this pump and then we engineered more liquidity at the highs. We created more failure swings with respect to this 10 a.m. open here. So again, that it was kind of messing with me as like now we've swept these lows, failed to distribute. It's like what else do we need to distribute higher? Okay. So that's where it led for me to take my trade is because we had greater manipulation with YM. This is where my trade comes into play here. Is we continue, we fail to go higher, we engineer more failure swings, trend on liquidity, we move lower, and then about 1040 hits, 1045, we manipulate lower, we tap into this 30-minute fair value gap on ES, and we're also sweeping this internal low. Tons of failure swings up here. And then YM sweeps low of day, forming a high time frame cracking correlation at the lows. So now NQ and ES are holding very bullish in respect to where YM is in its range, right? So now this is where I'm like, okay, this is a possibility for longs as well. That's how 10 a.m. open did nothing, didn't manipulate higher, and then it just accumulated and engineered liquidity, manipulated lower, and now it's expanding higher, right? So that was like my why I had been okay with longs, even though I was still bearish bias, is because, and this is also like the mistake I made is because I prioritized this LR and this trend on liquidity, although on ES and YM, there was still no reason to move higher, right? Only NQ has this strong liquidity right here. ES has nothing here. It's just imbalance. It's this IRL to move lower. We already had this manipulation, right? We accumulated here, manipulated, now we're distributing. There's no reason to come back and take these failure swings. We should just distribute now, right? I was just prioritizing this, and I was prioritizing the LR and trendline liquidity we formed here. Okay, yeah, or YM again, right? What does YM have above to target? It literally swept this liquidity right here, swept this internal high, and then it began to expand lower, just distributing lower. And what is this right here? This is the S&P high. We have an S&P between the assets as well, just confirming the lower prices. So I just tunnel vision on this LR here, even though like Nasdaq could have a reason to go higher, ES and YM have no reason to. So I didn't really trade the triad in this sense, but I more focused on Nasdaq, and I was too tunnel visioned on just what was on Nasdaq as well. Even though there was new manipulation put in and there was LR and everything, it's definitely more of like a mechanical setup, but not as much as a make sense and high time frame setup. So I did miss this CISD here. That would have been much better entry had I seen it. But I got back on my computer off the alerts came back, and then I thought this was the CISD. I didn't even see this down here, and we were like, I think once we retraced, I just got like some fill, and I targeted these highs. Okay, and then what happened is we literally just died off and just died off. And then I did mitigate my risk a little bit, mitigate my loss. Is once I saw this, I'm like, all right, I'm trying to find a protected low to trail my stop, because we're so close proximity to my stop loss, anyways. So I did see this before the S&P here with YM. It was at this low right here, and then after that, I treated this as like some internal or intermediate low. Once we swept it and expanded higher, I trailed my stop to right here and formed this like low time frame CISD. I trimmed my stop to right here because it's like if we're gonna run back beneath this low, we're very likely just gonna run my stop loss. And we formed like wickless candles right here, expanded higher. I trimmed my stop loss to right here. It's like if we're gonna go below this, obviously this is just I'm kind of accepting that my idea is wrong, and then we're so deep in discount of the range is that we perform a protected low. I should expect expansion away, but if we run this protected low, we're likely seeing my stop loss. So that was my thought process there. We ran it, and I was able to mitigate this risk right here, which I'll take. But lesson learned of trading the triad instead of just trading NQ and tunnel visioning on just LR, where this very well could just be a high resistance distribution, right? Even though we're making these close proximity swings, we just could be in a high resistance market because of FOMC this afternoon at 2 p.m. Uh, so yeah, that is my trade. There wasn't really like any clean short setups besides like this initial one right here. And something that I wanted to note was that in the sense of like just because there's LR above, this is again where I messed up here. Is because there's LR above, that makes shorts likely less probability because price could have a reason to go up and run this. However, um, that doesn't mean longs are more valid because we could be high time frame bearish still, right? So shorts could be invalid in this sense, and longs could be invalid because it's against market structure. So in the future, you want me I got to make sure that I'm in line with the market structure as well as the LR. Okay, like if there's LR above me and I'm bearish, I just have to wait until there's more imbalances or further away from the LR. But if I'm bearish and there's LR above me, or I think I just said that. But if I'm bearish, I want LR below me, right? And then I can validate a short. If I'm bullish, then I want LR above me. So that just makes sense. But just because there's conflicting, bearish bias, but there's LR above me, that is the reason I was tunnel vision and made that mistake. But yeah, I hope you guys know something. Let me know if you have any questions. But yeah, have a good one.